This is CBN NewsWatch.
And thank you so much for joining us for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Attorneys for a Seattle church have filed a federal lawsuit against Washington state officials for forcing churches to pay for elective abortions in their health insurance. Mark Martin is following this story, and he joins us now from the CBN newsroom with more. Mark?
Ephraim, Alliance Defending Freedom lawyers representing Cedar Park Assembly of God challenged the constitutionality and legality of a new state mandate. Now, that mandate requires the Seattle area church to fund abortion if it provides its staff members access to group health insurance. ADF legal counsel Alyssa Graves said in a statement that Cedar Park believes and teaches that every human life begins at conception and is worthy of protection at every point until natural death. The church's lawsuit challenges the constitutionality and legality of Washington State Senate Bill 6219, legislation signed into law last March. The legislation requires Cedar Park to provide coverage for abortion if the church also offers maternity care coverage to its employees. The ADF complaint explains that Cedar Park purchased a group health insurance plan in order to provide high-quality health care coverage for its employees and fulfill its legal obligations under the law.
What we are defending and standing for are the rights of people of faith to not be forced into being complicit to something that's inconsistent with our faith.
The church's health care insurance is intended to protect life and to help mothers who are welcoming a new baby into the world, not to end life through abortion.
We distinctly do not cover abortion because it's the antithesis of who we are as an organization, what our beliefs are, how we live out our faith.
Not obeying the Washington state law means facing fines and criminal penalties, including prison time. ChristianHeadlines.com reports the Washington State Catholic Conference was concerned over the bill's lack of religious exemptions before it passed last year, but the bill's sponsor, Democrat State Senator Steve Hobbs, declined to change it, saying employers had the option of suing. And Ephraim, he told KOMO-TV that, quote, healthcare is about the individual, not about them. Back to you.
All right, thank you, Mark. Joining us now from the Alliance Defending Freedom, that's the firm representing the Seattle church, is Kevin Thiero. Kevin, so what more can you tell us about this case?
This case is really about the state trying to force churches to act contrary to their religious convictions. And of course, churches shouldn't be forced to fund abortions, but that's exactly what this law does.
Do you think this case shows a double standard regarding religious liberty and separation of church and state in any way?
Certainly it does. I mean, this is the government intruding on the affairs of the church, and not only churches, but all religious organizations are forced to fund abortion in violation of their convictions. And a church shouldn't be required to include abortion when in its healthcare provision for its employees just because they cover maternity.
So what makes the state think churches should be required to include abortion coverage in healthcare?
Well, they mistakenly believe that abortion is part of healthcare, but abortion is not healthcare. They, of course, think that abortion is vital in order for a woman to be able to be successful, and that's completely contrary not only to what many women in our organization and in the church believe, but it's contrary to the fact that women can have successful lives, and we can protect women through childbearing without forcing them or coercing them to participate in abortion.
So, Kevin, what is the end goal in this case? What are you hoping to achieve here?
Well, we want to get this law struck down because it coerces churches to violate their religious convictions. And we are hopeful that the judge will see this as an opportunity to protect religious freedom and for what it really is. And that's the state of Washington imposing their beliefs on a religious organization, a church.
Now, we know that this church is involved in this lawsuit. Are you hearing from others who would want to join suit?
We are. We've talked to several different religious organizations that are affected by this in the state of Washington due to some technicalities in the way that the law is worded. It doesn't. It only applies to churches that employ large churches, like, for instance, Cedar Park, that have a school and employ about 180 people. So not all churches have that many employees.
All right, Kevin from the Alliance Defending Freedom, thank you so much for your time. We'll keep you updated, keep us updated on this case. Thank you.
Thank you, Evan.
California lawmakers are debating a bill that would force foster parents to use any transgender pronoun the foster children want. Supporters say it is the best way for children who believe they're transgender, but opponents say it will force out foster parents with religious beliefs that conflict. These opponents argue California cannot afford to lose any more foster parents, but surprisingly, the bill's sponsor argues this transgender pronoun mandate will attract more foster parents. Here's the debate between Assemblyman Mathis, who opposes the bill, and the bill's sponsor, Assemblyman Gibson.
We don't want to lose good foster parents, regardless of what their religious values are. And we need to make sure that we are ensuring the care, because we just don't have enough fosters. There's not enough, especially for children with IEPs and special needs. Sure. So I just, my question for you, Mr. Gibson, I know you work very diligently to ensure that definitions get done and policies are set straight. In your opinion, does this bill help get more foster parents, yes or no?
I think this bill has great potential of, one, increasing parents taking in foster children, also understanding the complexities and the trauma that these foster youth go through just being a foster child, period.
In other news, President Trump has unveiled a new budget, the largest in U.S. history. His $4.7 trillion proposal includes an increase in defense spending, but cuts most domestic programs. Democrats in the House are already saying the president's budget is dead on arrival.
Well, I don't know how in the world that you could ever interpret it as helping working class Americans. Again, just on the one question of student loans and loan forgiveness, it changes both of those programs, cuts $200 billion out of student guaranteed loans, and then changes the loan forgiveness program, which again benefits middle income Americans. So no, I think this is disastrous for middle America.
President Trump's proposal for the fiscal year that begins October 1st also includes $8.6 billion to build the U.S.-Mexico border wall. Our team in Washington, D.C. will have more on the latest from Washington in tonight's Faith Nation. Of course, you can catch that right here on the CBN News Channel. Britain has decided to ground their Boeing 737 MAX airplanes after Sunday's catastrophic crash that killed all 157 people on board. They joined 5 other nations and 25 airlines that have temporarily suspended flights amid the ongoing investigation. It is the second deadly crash involving the airliner in just 4 months. U.S. carriers Southwest and American are still using the Boeing 737 MAX, but the FAA did issue a continued airworthiness notification Monday.
The 737 itself is an extremely reliable aircraft. It has been in service for decades. This is the newest evolution of it. Whenever you have a new change or a new aircraft or a substantially different model, as in this case, the engines are different to get a more economical fuel burn, and they are moved forward, changing the weight and balance of the aircraft. So there are substantial changes to the airplane. Whenever you get this, there are often issues that come up that are unanticipated.
The FAA is assisting in the investigation and says if it identifies any issues that affect safety, it will take immediate and appropriate action. Senator Lindsey Graham says he will push for the Golan Heights to be recognized by the United States as part of Israel because it is the best thing for America. Graham and U.S. Ambassador to Israel accompanied Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on a visit to the strategic Golan Heights. Graham said he believes there's bipartisan support in Congress for recognizing the strategic plateau as part of Israel.
In the State Department, there's a map, and this part, the Golan, is labeled as disputed territory. My goal is to try to persuade the administration to change that designation. That is not disputed. The Golan is not in dispute. The Golan is in the hands of Israel and always remain in the hands of Israel.
I agree.
The Golan Heights is part of Israel's biblical inheritance. It came back into Israel's hands as a result of the 1967 Six-Day War. For years, it has been Israel's quietest border, but since the outbreak of the Syrian civil war, it became increasingly more volatile. Now the presence of Iran inside Syria, it is even more critical to Israel. A reminder to check out our CBN News Daily Rundown podcast with Caitlin Burke, which deals with a behind-the-scenes look at key stories in the news every day. You can find that at cbnnews.com. On the show tab, simply click on the title to listen and to subscribe. Coming up, the crisis in Venezuela continues. We're going to have the latest on how the U.S. is responding. That story is coming up next. Stay with us.
CBN presents The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
We're going to talk about some of the incredible promises God has made to His children.
In Pat Robertson's newest teaching, you'll discover the I Wills of God. I will rescue him, protect him, answer him, be with him in trouble, deliver him, honor him, satisfy him with long life, show him my salvation, and see amazing stories of God's promises in action.
What I felt was loved and treasured.
God spared my life twice in 3 days.
The good Lord had given me a second chance.
Break free from stress and despair.
The Lord doesn't want you to live in fear, but to know the rewards given to those who love God.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or visit cbn.com. The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
Hello, I'm Terry Newsom. Did you know there are more than 148 million orphans in the world today? 148 million. But it was 3 little girls that taught me about the plight of orphans. My husband and I spent nearly a month immersed in the daily activities of a Ukrainian orphanage as we waited to adopt 3 sisters. I saw firsthand the utter loneliness, the pain of rejection, and the overwhelming desire to be loved. That experience changed me forever. And out of it grew a ministry from my heart called Orphans Promise. Today, we're helping orphans and vulnerable children in more than 50 countries worldwide. Thousands of children are now in safe homes. They're being educated, and they're learning life skills. I'm asking you to join with me and become family to these children. Will you call the number on your screen right now? Because every child deserves a chance to be happy.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says all remaining American staff members at the U.S. Embassy in Venezuela are leaving the country by the end of the week. This comes as the political crisis continues to rock the country. Secretary Pompeo also lashing out at Cuba and Russia for continuing to support Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, saying they're contributing to his country's economic crisis. He told reporters at the State Department Monday the U.S. is interested only in the welfare of the Venezuelan people.
We have a handful of countries that are providing aid and comfort to the Maduro regime at enormous expense to the people of Venezuela. And we want to make sure that the resources that the Venezuelan people are going to need after Maduro leaves, we want to make sure those resources are available for the Venezuelan people and not shipped off to Cuba or to Russia or to Iran.
The U.S. supports opposition leader Juan Guaido and the country's legislature in an ongoing battle to oust Maduro, claiming Maduro stole the most recent elections. And joining us now from the Hamilton Strategies is the Vice President of Special Projects for the Center for Security Policy, Tommy Walker. So, Tommy, what does it mean that we've withdrawn embassy officials from the country?
Well, Ephraim, the situation in Venezuela is absolutely dire. There's an adage about survival that one can go 3 minutes without air, 3 days without water, and 3 weeks without food. And unfortunately, now as we reach almost the 6th day of a blackout, just about a nationwide blackout in Venezuela, the poor people in Venezuela are feeling and understanding and grasping at that reality of survival. As far as American diplomats, as the situation deteriorates, I think it's important for their safety, the safety of their families, for them to be evacuated as soon as possible. But this is a situation that Americans really need to pay attention to. It's a cautionary tale, really, of a few factors in Venezuela that have resulted in this dire situation. Ephraim, today you caught me in my home office, and perhaps it's a good thing. It's illustrative of the reality that as a member of the Secure the Grid Coalition, a coalition of experts that are focused on securing our nation's electric grid, I realized that vulnerability. And so just behind me is the stored food and the different things that I would need for my own family if I had to live without electricity. And so this is really a cautionary tale for Americans to look at how we must protect our grid infrastructure, how we must be prudent and prepared, and how we really need to steer away from the socialist type leadership that caused this in the first place.
What do you think the next step is for the United States in this?
Well, I think we need to assist the Venezuelan people, but we need to do everything we can to prevent a socialist future for the country. And that's what's so disturbing about so many young Americans, for whatever reason, embracing this ideology of socialism. When you look at Venezuela right now they're in the midst of trying to restore power. And the talented engineers and electric grid operators that are needed for this restoration process are no longer there. They've left the country because of the conditions created under socialist rule. And so the country is blessed. I mean, one dam alone, the Guri Dam, can provide enough power for 25% of the country's population. But it doesn't exist close to that population. That electricity has to travel over many, many miles. And so the infrastructure that was built to transport that electricity is something that the socialist government of Venezuela allowed to deteriorate. And so it should be a lesson for us with our own infrastructure to be sure that the same type of infrastructure we have in America that we depend on for our lives is secure. And that's exactly what our Secure the Grid coalition is working towards.
We know the military is a big piece of this puzzle here. Where does the Venezuelan military stand, and do you think there's a chance they'll turn against Maduro?
Well, we can only hope and pray that they would. The military in any country, there's a weight on the shoulders of military officers. I've served in the Marine Reserves and continue to serve. And so, my heart is with the American people. And I can only hope and pray that the hearts of those military officers in Venezuela are with the people, and that they can see the truth of what socialism has brought them, what the totalitarian leadership of this dictator has brought their country, and that those military officers will do the right thing, and that they will protect the people from that type of leadership, and they'll embrace the type of freedom that we enjoy here in America.
All right, Tommy Waller, thank you so much for your time. Much appreciated.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Still ahead, a surprising fact. Women are more likely to suffer from a range of mental health issues than men are. We're going to take a look at those problems and let you know what you can do about them. Stay with us.
Parents, the Superbook Bible app is a great way to get your child reading the Bible, because in today's busy world, we can use some help. The free Superbook Bible app has fun stuff your kids will love. They'll have a blast learning the Bible, playing great games, watching cool videos, discovering heroes in the Bible. They'll have fun while they learn God's Word. The Superbook Kids Bible app, available now.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Discover the I wills of God. I will rescue him, protect him, answer him, be with him in trouble, deliver him, honor him, satisfy him with long life, show him my salvation.
What I felt was loved and treasured
God spared my life twice in 3 days.
The good Lord had given me a second chance.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or visit CBN.com. The I Wills of God, the latest teaching from Pat Robertson.
And welcome back. Here is a health shocker. Women are far more likely than men to suffer from a whole host of mental health issues. CBN Health reporter Lori Johnson recently interviewed women's health expert Dr. Sarah Gottfried, who says the good news is there are still many ways to turn that around.
So you recently just wrote this wonderful new book called The Brain Body Diet, which talks specifically about the woman's brain. And believe it or not, folks, women's brains and men's brains are different. We're not saying whose is better, but they are definitely different. In fact, if you have just the brain scans, 8 out of 10 times you can see what the gender of the person is just by looking at their brain scan. So how are men and women's brains different?
Well, they're different in a few ways. There's a structural difference, there's a molecular difference, and then there's a functional difference. And these differences add up to some of the changes that we see between men and women in their risk of disease. So women have double the risk of depression. We have double the risk of insomnia. We have double the risk of Alzheimer's disease, higher rates of autoimmunity, higher rates of anxiety. But let's go back to how these differences are manifest. And I like that you said, we're not going to say one is better.
Although we know, wink, wink.
So we know that they're different. And the reason why I care about this difference is because when you understand the difference, it helps the women who suffer more so that we can figure out how to solve it. So one of the big differences is structurally. Women have a bigger hippocampus. So the hippocampus is where you do emotional regulation and also memory consolidation. It's where memories are formed. So there's a big difference between men and women, but that also means since women have a bigger hippocampus, we're more vulnerable to toxins, to eating too much sugar, to too much stress. Men have a bigger amygdala. That's the part of the brain that looks for threat in the environment.
And impulsivity.
Impulsivity, exactly. So there's those differences. Probably the biggest difference is hormones. So sex hormones are different. Women have more estrogen, we have more progesterone, we have less testosterone compared to men. And that's why men do so much better with weight loss than women do.
Frustrating.
And then there's brain chemistry differences. So these are called neurotransmitters. Those relate again to the hormones, because hormones can change. You know, for instance, estrogen can change your oxytocin level. That's one of the reasons why women do better with oxytocin. If you hug a man, you have to hug them 3 times as long to get the same bump in oxytocin. So you have to remember that with the guys that you're hugging. And then there's functional difference. So functional differences are crucial too, because women tend to, we tend to multitask better. We tend to, we're more vulnerable to stress. And this is a big issue because I feel like, you know, sometimes we talk about stress and people's eyes glaze over. And I just think it's essential that you have a strategy for how to rise above the stress.
And, you know, you talk about things like Alzheimer's, depression, stress, anger. These are all things that I see in so many women in my life. So many women I love who are miserable, women who struggle with being overweight, and all of these things, and people who are just overwhelmed and generally literally feel that they can't handle their lives. And it's heartbreaking, really, that this is going on. And what I love about your book is that you offer practical tips to correct that. This is not something that's just happening to women on an individual basis. This is common with all women, especially women who are eating a lot of the processed foods and the sugars and the terrible diet, the sad diet, standard American diet. Talk about how diet influences the way we think and even our mood.
Well, this is a crucial piece because, you know, an important part of the brain-body connection is how the gut is talking to the brain. So this is known as the gut-brain axis. The food is the most important driver of your gut health. So if we look at, for instance, the microbiome, this is the set of microbes that you have in your gut and their DNA. The most important influence on your gut is food. Number 2 is stress, but let's stick with the food. So you want to feed the good bugs. You do that by eating prebiotics, by eating certain vegetables, things like artichokes, Jerusalem artichokes, onions, garlic. Those things feed the good bacteria. You want to be eating about 1 pound of vegetables per day. That's essential to get the fiber that you need to stabilize your blood sugar, which helps with all of these things that we talk about. So with blood sugar, if you have a problem with blood sugar, and you may not even know, you may have prediabetes or slightly rising blood sugar, that leads to cognitive decline, where you walk into a room and you can't remember why. It leads to brain fog, leads to that sense of overwhelm and anxiety.
There's lots more to that interview. You can catch the entire interview and learn more, including why spending time with friends is one of the many ways to reduce stress. That is this evening on Healthy Living. You can find it on the CBN News Channel beginning at 9:30 Eastern. Don't go anywhere. We're right back. Stay with us.
When you give, smiles grow bigger. When you care, homes are happier. When you comfort, the hurt goes away. When we all come together to love, miracles happen.
Hello, I'm Terry Newsom. Did you know there are more than 148 million orphans in the world today? 148 million. But it was 3 little girls that taught me about the plight of orphans. My husband and I spent nearly a month immersed in the daily activities of a Ukrainian orphanage as we waited to adopt 3 sisters. I saw firsthand the utter loneliness, the pain of rejection, and the overwhelming desire to be loved. That experience changed me forever. And out of it grew a ministry from my heart called Orphans Promise. Today, we're helping orphans and vulnerable children in more than 50 countries worldwide. Thousands of children are now in safe homes. They're being educated, and they're learning life skills. I'm asking you to join with me and become family to these children. Will you call the number on your screen right now? Because every child deserves a chance to be happy.
Hello? Is this thing on? Hey, kids, do you love games? And do you love discovering things? Well, do ya?
Then you're gonna love this. It's the new free Superbook Kids Bible app. You can play games, watch videos, find answers to your questions, and a whole lot more. The new Superbook Kids Bible app. Free downloads available on iTunes and Google Play now.
Justin Bieber is reaching out to friends and followers asking for prayer. He posted on Instagram writing that he has been struggling a lot and says, I just wanted to reach out and ask you guys to pray for me. God is faithful and your prayers really work. Bieber has been open about his personal struggles. Recently, he also told Vogue in an interview with his wife, Haley, that marriage is hard and that the two are seeking counseling. He said in his Instagram post that he is indeed healing and moving on. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody.